When talking about the Renaissance, it is nice to note that this started in Italy in the 1300s and was basically a rebirth of learning. Instead of focusing on religious beliefs, we started focusing on what humans can do and what man can do. After it started in Italy, it spread north to Western Europe, and it advocated for the study of human learning and emphasized individual power to shape its own destiny and accomplish great things. Now we're going to learn how women fit into that position.
During the Renaissance had no political or voting rights. At this time, they were basically considered property of their husband. I know. And their only obligations were to take care of the house and be a housewife. They took care of their kids, did the dishes, did the laundry, and that was it.
Margaret de Navarre, she was known for helping negotiate the Treaty of Cambrai, known as the Ladies' Peace, and she was a Renaissance humanist who educated her daughter, and she believed in women's rights and just education for women in general. She reformed a corrupt convent and the monasteries in her own far-reaching territories because she believed that some of these Catholic convents were corrupt and they needed improvements, but she did end up remaining Catholic, but she wanted change for the Catholic Church.
The Renaissance, I feel like it's only appropriate to talk about the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation itself started when Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses in Wittenberg, Germany in 1517. Though he was not the first person to criticize the Catholic Church, his refusal to recant and his distribution of his writings caused a lot of uproar between the Protestants and the Catholic Church. This also led to 100 years of religious war.
Now, it was during the Reformation where women began to gain a few more opportunities. They got to go to school, they got education, they learned how to read, just little things like that. They still had very little political rights, but it was a big step for them. And with that, the Protestants were really what pushed this because they began to read into scripture more, and with that came this further look into equality, especially with Martin Luther, who said that God looked at man and woman equally, and that was a huge step for women being able to even just be acknowledged to be equals in some sort of way.
And we're going to start off with Charlotte Corday. Now, Charlotte Corday had a solid education and she encouraged others to read. She was a huge figure in the French Revolution and supported the revolution but opposed the Reign of Terror. And she was a member of the Girondins, and basically she ended up stabbing John Paul Marat in his chest in his own bathtub because he had a disease from living in the sewers, so he had to be in the bathtub about 90% of his life. So she took matters into her own hands, and because she did not like him and she thought that Paul was making the revolution a little bit more extreme than necessary, she stabbed John Paul Marat in his bathtub, and she waited for the police to arrive so they could arrest her and guillotine her 4 days later.
Talking about the Age of Exploration, we actually see that we use some Renaissance ideals and technology and learning to explore the globe and find new trading resources. We use those same techniques, however, to devastate indigenous people, but that is a video from a different day.
Now, the age of exploration for women wasn't a huge deal. They didn't really gain or lose much. They still had no political rights, no voting rights. However, they were advocating for themselves more during this time. They could read, they could write, they were making progress just slowly.
Now, I believe it is safe to talk about World War I and World War II.
Finally, women gained their right to vote in World War I. They still had a lot of fighting to do to gain complete equality, and we're still probably kind of fighting today, but this was a huge step for them. They finally had a say in government, and it was a huge time for women, a major accomplishment. And in World War II, women were even making more strides by fighting in this war on the home front and in battle. There was over 600,000 female soldiers involved in World War II. Whether they worked as nurses or were actually fighting, they actually participated in the war. And as all the men went off to fight for their country, the women stayed on the home front and ran the factories, ran the coal mines, drove the trucks. It was insane for women to actually be able to support their countries and show men that they were more than housewives. And it was huge for them. Huge gain for women that day.